What is this rubbish?
Welcome everybody to Obsolete Futures. I have a question before we start. What do Wesley Crusher from the Starship Enterprise, Penn and Teller, Tony Hawk, and Garth from Wayne's World have in common? A love for the video toaster. I'm not kidding. All of these people are connected in some way or the other to the video toaster. And we're going to talk about it. And of course, you're going to see me put together a video toaster, at least part of it for now. But I wanted to start with a story. Why is it that I like video toasters in the first place? Also, why is it that my camera looks better? Remember last time I showed you the camera I was using? Very quickly here. If I can just set this up. Bam! That is the Panasonic that I was recording on last time. Remember? That is that kind of VHS reporter thing that you would take to a football game or something for a small studio. Well, I've upgraded. Told you I'd look for something more pro. I had it on the cards. In fact, I'd already ordered it and was busy fixing it. But let me tell you about my new camera before we continue. Very briefly. Man, that paintbrush thing looks lame. Anyway, I'm now shooting on a Panasonic professional broadcast camera. It's awesome. It was shorting out. The lens mount was messed up and loose. And of course, there was a lot of junk and crud inside on the sensor and on the lens. So I've been spending my spare time kind of resurrecting this camera. It took a long time to figure out how the menu systems work because the little LCD thing on the side is broken. So I have to look through the viewfinder and it's got a million buttons. I love it. I'll make a whole video about it if you guys are interested. And all the cameras I have, because I have things all the way from ancient times all the way up to, the latest sort of 4K stuff that I've used for my main sort of work. Anyway, that aside, back to video toasters. So I have to take you back to high school. All right. So as I grew up, I told you before I was fascinated with computers. And I played around with Commodore 64s, BBC Micros, things like that. But my real true love of computers were the IBM PC compatibles. I actually started with a real actually started with a real IBM PC XT, and then that was the 4.5 megahertz one, and then I got a 286, 386, all that stuff in between, and I got a long history, which is for another video. However, sometime during my very early high school, I met somebody who had an Amiga 500. Now, Amiga 500 is an all-in-one computer, very similar to the Atari ST or various others. I've got an Amiga 600, which I showed you last time. And I didn't think much of it, right? It's an ancient computer from the 80s. I thought it was another Commodore 64 type idea. The guy had it in his house and we powered it on. And I was amazed. I couldn't believe that on a floppy disk, very basic floppy disk, this guy was able to play games that had sound sampling, speech in some of them, music, incredibly good-looking graphics for the time. And, okay, of course, I was coming from PC. At that time, we had CD-ROM drives, Sound Blasters. My first Sound Blaster was the Sound Blaster 2.0. Awesome card. Dr. Spadeso, the Talking Parrot, all that junk. But I was used to this multimedia experience on a computer, but an expensive computer, a advanced computer for the time, CD-ROM drives were new technology. All of that multimedia stuff was new and exciting. But to find out that this ancient computer had these very cool effects, and, you had the mod files. I'd been playing mod files, S3M files. These are music files, by the way. In fact, here. This is my favorite mod file from back in the day. It's called Space Debris. And this this was actually made on an Amiga by a single chap, a schoolboy who went home, sat down on his Amiga 500 and made it, right? So I was kind of blown away at this little old machine. But then, you know, I kind of forgot about it. I did later on pick one up and play around with it and so on. But it wasn't until just after high school. Myself and a group of friends had a very interesting friends group in high school. My best friends were a Dutch guy who had come with his parents because of their business to South Africa, and a Russian guy who had come with his parents because his mother had a job in South Africa. So anyway, the three of us decided to go on a road trip, but not to just anywhere. We had fallen in this kind of interesting crowd. We used to go to LAN parties, you know, and set up our computers and do all this stuff. And we'd met a guy who was kind of like an OG hacker type of guy. He was our age. And him and my Dutch friend, they set up a cybersecurity company. This is way back in the day when cybersecurity was still a new thing. Words like firewalls and that type of thing were still kind of new. It was, you know, the early 90s. So they'd set up the cybersecurity company. I was working straight after high school, I worked for an internet service provider, an ISP. It was called Global Internet Access, and it was, you know, the early days of dial-up internet. I was a telephone support technician. I moved up to fixing all the computers people would bring in. You know, if their computer couldn't connect to the internet, they'd bring it into the office, and I'd fix it for them. And then I started to fix all the support computers, and I caught the eye of the IT boss, and he kind of poached me from support, and I became one of the IT guys for Global Internet Access, and then moved up when they got bought out to other corporations. Again, a story for another time. So we went on this road trip to this security expert, OG hacker guy's hometown, which happened to be East London. Now, East London is a coastal town in South Africa. I've only been there that one time, and maybe when I was a toddler or something. But it's famous for, I guess, kit cars. You know, those AC Cobra replicas that you get, those cars people buy, and you know, they're very popular around the world. I think they're all made in East London. It's a big automotive, area there. Anyway, so we all piled into my Dutch friend's car. An old Opel Kadett, at the time new, because he's from a rich family. It was a brand new Opel Kadett. I think it was a 2-liter fuel-injected, and it was really cool. And we zoomed all the way down to East London. So when we got to East London, you know, we were, at the time, I guess, 19, 20, thereabouts, 18, probably 18, 19, 20, one of those 3 years anyway. And what do you do when you're that age? Well, you go to the clubs, you know, you go out clubbing. And our friend, the cybersecurity expert guy, he was from East London, and he knew a club called, I want to say it was called Checkers, something like that. I don't know, chessboard, checkers, checkmate, some nonsense like that. Obviously wasn't all that important, even though this is an important memory. But he took us to this club. And I remember walking in. It looked like kind of an ordinary club. There was a dance floor, and then there was like a DJ booth that was glassed off kind of up there. But I was blown away instantly because they had a big projector screen. And a couple of TVs as well, like all mounted on the wall. You know, back then, big CRTs. And on the TVs was the dance floor. So... but it was weird, okay? You know those like sort of 90s MTV music videos where everything's sort of solarized and processed and a bit jerky and a bit like that type of thing? Well, it was showing the people dancing on the dance floor live, and then it was processing it and putting it up in real time on all these TVs and this big projector screen, showing the people dancing, but all, you know, funky and sort of music video-like. And I was like wondering how on earth were they doing this? And even during the night, some dude would walk out with a camera, kind of similar to the ones I've got here, probably more similar to the VHS one that I have over there, with a long cable behind it. You'd walk out onto the dance floor and like pointed at people, and you'd see like your face up on the projector screen, sort of dancing with all these cool effects. And I was like, this is awesome. So I asked my friend about it because he was a local. And he knew the people who ran the club and so on. And he said, well, they're using a video toaster. through an Amiga. And I was like, no, you could, an Amiga, that old computer from the 80s? How on earth can that old thing do such heavy processing and in real time render out these amazing sort of effects on the live footage? Of course, I didn't have a full understanding of how analog video and switching and stuff worked back in the day, but that was it. So ever since that night, and it was a great night, you know, we were young, drank a lot, had a good time, you know, all the energy and follies of youth and all that kind of stuff. But once we were done, we went on, carried on with the holiday and all that, and this memory of this video toaster never really left me. So now we come to a couple of years ago. I just arrived in the States, and I started to go on the lookout to see if I could find a video toaster, because I've always been fascinated and wanted to try it out. And I did. I found a video toaster. Wait here. I'm actually going to go find it.
Good work, Starship. We'll talk to you at 0600.
That's a copy.
Why don't you guys take a break?
Hey, how about a Pepsi? There's only one left.
Pepsi, the choice of a new generation.
Okay, and I'm back. So, here it is. The venerable video toaster. This could be the thumbnail right here. Did that work out? Guess we'll know later. This is a video toaster. It is a card. It's very special. Sorry. So let me explain to you what I got. I got the video toaster, but of course, you need a very specific computer for this to work. Okay, this particular video toaster, I believe, came out in 1991, maybe. It does not say, but I'm pretty sure this is called the Video Toaster 2.0, and I believe it came out in 1990 or 1991. Either way, let me explain to you how this works. You've got these BNC connectors on the back here, and these are basically the same as, you know, on your old TV you had that sort of yellow and red and white, those AV ports on the front or the back to plug in your Super Nintendo or your Mega Drive or your NES, that type of thing. Well, these are just the professional connections. The reason they're like this is, whoops, is you get these cables, the BNC cable. In fact, anyone who's done old networking will know all about these. That's how I knew about them. But, you know, these things actually, it's like a barrel connector that clips on. So now it's very, very stable. You know, I don't really want to shake this around, but you get the idea. And it's for professionals because, you know, if you're in a professional environment and you're recording a live TV show and someone trips over a wire, you don't want it to like pull right out. So it's a stable, proper connection. So what you've got here is you've got 4 at the top, and these are inputs. So you've got, you know, you plug in a camera, just like the ones I've got here. Anything that puts out a composite image, you know, a very basic analog image. So you plug in a camera, you can plug in a VCR, you can plug in, I don't know, you can plug in a game console if you want. You could plug in a Super Nintendo or something into here. Anything that puts out, like I said, a composite image. So these 4 are for your 4 different cameras or 4 different sources, which you can then switch on the fly. Kind of like what I'm doing now. When I can press a button here, and I can go, you know, between these 2 cameras. But I can also, if I want to, do some kind of a fancy transition. I'm cheating a bit. This is on. I'm doing this on the TriCaster, which is the what do you call it? The offspring of the of the video toaster. The video toaster is this thing's direct ancestor. It's like its grandparent or its parent, basically. Take a look here. So you see, this is how it works. You've got different things, different cameras, and then the video toaster acts as this cool sort of man, that looked like toss. I'm sorry, those balloons. Wow. Whoever used that, seriously, because this is supposed to be for professionals, right? Can you imagine some kind of TV show and they're like, woo, Krusty the Clown? Anyway, that's better, just a fade. So your different sources, just like I have these different sources plugged in over there. Then you've got a preview and a program out. Sorry, let me change back to the better camera. This thing's so much better. We're in the same light. This is very poor lighting in this studio, and I've done that on purpose because I kind of like that vibe, that sort of very grungy 80s vibe. If it annoys you, let me know, and I'll think about changing it. Anyway, so you got a preview, and then you've got program. Program is the live feed. That's the feed that you would normally put into a professional grade VCR, and you would record your entire production, your live production, onto that VCR. It's called linear editing, which is really difficult, as I've found out, because it's the kind of thing where you don't get to cut and paste and move things around. You have to do it on the fly. You have to time everything. You have to be like, okay, here it comes up, quickly do a thing. Now I actually have a control panel down here. This is how I'm doing it. Can you see that? Watch this. Watch this. Sorry, I know this is like a big show and tell, but take a look at this. There's a T-bar and you go, hang on, that was supposed to do something. There we go. See, I can actually go midway and stop it there. Keep going like this. See, or I can go like really fast or really... Man, that paintbrush thing sucks. Can I get another one? Oh, I can. I just selected here. How about some coins? Okay, but you get it, right? It's like a T-bar. So back in the day, this is how people would do it. They'd sit in front of their video toaster, their rig. They'd have the thing recording. They'd have the different inputs, and they'd be switching on the fly. It's kind of nerve-wracking, but it's awesome when you get it right. It's very, very satisfying. Anyway, back to the video toaster. So, of course, I bought this off eBay. And then what? What are you supposed to do with it? You need a computer. Now, the only computers that this thing's going to work in is an Amiga 2000. That's the best computer for this particular model. An Amiga 3000 and an Amiga 4000. But I believe in the Amiga 4000. I'm not even sure if this works. If it does, you have to like modify the case or something for this to fit. Or like, I don't know, modify this backplate. There's something weird. I've always wanted an Amiga 4000. They're very expensive, very hard to get, so maybe somewhere down the line. I do have a friend who has one that he's refurbishing, and who knows, in the future, maybe I'll be able to introduce you guys to what that's all about. Anyway, so you need an Amiga 2000, and they came out sort of 87, I believe, 88, thereabouts. My one is from 1988. But you can't just get a stock one. It needs to be slightly upgraded. It needs to have 2 megs of chip RAM on it. And this is different from fast RAM. Amigas are a little strange that way. They've got these custom chips, and that's why they work so well, by the way. What put them ahead of all the other things is they've got these very cool custom chips that control different things like the graphics and the sound and the blitter, as it was called. Again, technical stuff. We can get into it if you're curious. So anyway, you need the RAM upgrade, and you need a faster processor and more RAM. And so I actually found, believe it or not, an Amiga 2000 with a video toaster in it. So I didn't need to buy this, by the way. That's why I've got this one and that one. And it's a good thing, too, because this one's actually a bit faulty and it's got weird colors. So anyway, I found an Amiga 2000 that had been used in a production place. It was already upgraded. It was in a bit of a rough shape, as they all are, basically, if you're buying them. And so I bought it, and it was expensive. You go look on eBay, see how much an Amiga 2000 with a video toaster costs. I mean, when I bought it was a couple of years ago, and it was still bloody expensive, and I had to really think for a long time before pulling the trigger, but I got it, it's something I always wanted. Anyway, so here's where the shock came in. I get the box. I open it up. I do the usual repairs. The batteries on these motherboards are terrible, and they go bad, and then they destroy the motherboard around them, they corrode it, and so on. Sorry. So, of course, I fixed the problems. I cleaned up all the corrosion. I put my wife's nail polish, as a solder mask, because I don't have any professional solder mask. And it had a very strange problem. There is an upgrade card in it. Like I said, you need to upgrade the processor and the RAM. So it's got this very cool CPU upgrade slot in the Amiga 2000. And I've got this massive big card that goes in there. It's called the Great Valley Products. I think it's a 030, so it's a 30 megahertz, I believe it's 30 megahertz processor, which is a huge upgrade from the stock processor. It has RAM in it, and it had a hard drive on it, and a SCSI controller. Again, SCSI, for those of you who are not sure, Small Computer Systems Interface, it was the bee's knees back in the day. You know, all of us normal plebs, we had IDE in our, you know, in all of our computers. And if you had a SCSI hard drive or a SCSI CD-ROM drive or a SCSI RAID array, you were like the king. It means you worked for a big company, you were very rich, or you were a professional who you worked in media, because it was always faster and better. So anyway, it has a SCSI controller on it, but the hard drive that was on it was mounted with these weird rubber dampening things which had melted. You know how old rubber these days, maybe you've got a car or some kind of device that is sticky. I might have something. Where? Let me see. Where is it? I've got it down here somewhere. There's so much junk. I know it. I know it'll turn up. Give me a second. Aha! I found it. This is a Zoom H1. It is a audio recorder, and I don't know how well this is going to come across on this old standard definition camera, but take a look at this. It is sticky and disgusting. Oh no, now my fingers have got sticky black stuff on them. You know, this is happening to all these sort of early to mid-2000s rubberized plastic devices. I got a friend whose car, the whole dashboard is like this now, all the buttons for his radio and stuff. Disgusting. That's why it's in this bag. I do clean these things up. If you can, strip it all off. It's a long time consuming process. I've done it with some of my old cameras and things, but it's definitely a late 90s, early 2000s problem. Anyway, so it had that kind of a thing. And the hard drive was just rattling around in there, and it was messy, and it had dripped this black dissolved rubber all over the motherboard, so I had to clean it all off. So anyway, clean it all off, get it up and running, and the video toaster didn't work. So now I didn't know what to do, because I'm just not familiar with how Amiga 2000s work. You know, how do their hard drives work? How does the operating system work? I know it's called Workbench, and then you've also got like the ROM chips are called kickstarts, and it's all a new thing for me to figure out. So I ordered, you have to still pay for the license, by the way, to get the kickstart ROMs. I got newer kickstart ROMs, put them in the motherboard, it didn't work. So it's like, okay, now what? Put the old ones back in, kind of works again, all right? But now it's not booting off the hard drive, it never did. So I got myself an old SCSI hard drive that worked, bought one off eBay, and I figured out how to get it going. Now, it was a long process, so I'm not going to talk about it in this video, but if you're interested, again, let me know, and I will. Because I had to get what's called a GoTech floppy drive emulator, which is fantastic. What a great piece of kit. And I was able to boot on virtual floppies on this original machine, install the Workbench operating system, install the latest version of the Video Toaster software, and I actually got it up and running. So now, here I am in the Video Toaster front end, and I plugged a camcorder into number 1, because that's where you're supposed to plug it into, and it came up great. Plugged a VCR into number 2. I don't know why I'm doing air quotes. I can actually just show you, since I have a Video Toaster right here. So let's do that again. I plugged my camcorder into this, and then I plugged the VCR into number 2. Okay, so start the camcorder. Looks great. Turn on the VCR. Everything just goes pear-shaped. Everything's weird and glitchy and wobbly, and I thought the thing was damaged or broken. So I couldn't switch between the two, because if I try to switch from one to the other, it just goes garbled, and it was rubbish, and it looked like as if you know your TV's not tuned in properly, or if you try to play a damaged VCR tape in a VHS tape in a VCR. So I was kind of bummed, and I didn't know what was going on. But after a little bit of research, I found out what the actual problem was. And I promised you guys that we'd learn about this thing. Yeah. Sorry. There we go. The Personal TBC4. This is what's called a time-based corrector. And strangely enough, this one came to me all the way from Japan. Because for whatever reason, it was in Japan. Some video professional had moved there and was living there. I believe he's American. And he had this. So what this does is it basically synchronizes the signals and makes them so that they're compatible. And I'm not entirely sure how it does this. I'd be lying if I told you I knew. I think it's got to do with it buffers a few frames and matches the frequencies. So now it's a little bit complicated, but what you have to do is when you plug in, let's show and tell over here. When you plug in your VCR, I mean your camcorder, so you need a good solid signal from a proper device. So a camcorder or a good DVD player, well, not even DVD, what am I saying? A good VCR or something like that. You plug it into this, but then you have to use a special kind of a split cable. So it pumps that clear signal into number one and then also into the Genlock, the bottom one here. The reference signal, as it calls it here, ref in. Okay. So you plug that in there. So then basically this is getting that initial signal from your number one source. Then you plug your second source into this time-based corrector where it says video in. And then from the video out, that thing goes into this second source. I hope I'm not being a bit too convoluted here, but it's pretty simple. You're putting a strong signal from your first device, your master device, so to speak, that goes in here, okay, but also into here. So it's split from your camera, okay? Then your second device, whatever it might be, and unfortunately you need one of these things for every single device that you plug in on this thing, as far as I'm aware. Your second device goes in, and then out, and then into here. And then it synchronizes them up. And that's how I'm able to perform those transitions between a VCR and a live camera, and they work perfectly. So that's really the mystery behind it. Now, there are a lot more mysteries behind the video toaster, like how popular it became. Who is the weird and interesting, well, who are the weird and interesting people that are in the transitions? Who's the girl doing the cartwheels? Well, I'm going to do a whole episode about these people because there's something cool I have. And that is I have access to a lot of old VHSs which have their demos and news interviews with these guys and so on. And I got so many cool things to share with you when it comes to the history of the video toaster. Maybe we should ask the tech doctor what she thinks of the video toaster.
Ahead of its time.
I agree, and I think it's time for us to end this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it fun and interesting. I'm very curious what you guys think of this new camera. I mean, let's just take another look at the old one. That stupid balloon thing looks so lame. Anyway, yeah, this is the old one. I mean, at least to me on this monitor, it looks night and day. And this is the new one. Wow, it's pretty awesome. Let me know what you think of the video toaster. We've got so many more interesting things to cover in the future. Can't wait to see you in episode 2 of Obsolete Futures. Where am I looking? I'm looking at the... Can't wait to see you in episode 2 of Obsolete Futures. And I will be reading every single comment. So let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. And, you know, let's keep staying awesome. Cheers.